Hey guys, good morning. Hope you're well. So how tall can you go with a volumetric modular building? 22, 30, 40 stories. How tall can you go? We actually had a site for a while in downtown Denver that we had gotten zoned. The area had gotten zoned for 22 story, up to 22 story zoning. The issue I can go a little bit into was parking. Is how do you park a 22 story building? The rents weren't high enough to bury the parking, and we weren't going to stack too many levels of parking. So what we ended up with, and what worked the best, was a 13 story building, 10 stories over 3 stories of parking. So as you guys know, it's obviously a lot more expensive to bury parking than it is to stack it, right? Which is why you see in a lot of areas, call it Texas donut, where you have concrete, precast usually concrete parking decks with apartments around it. We call that a Texas donut. A lot of guys have used that terminology. But so anyway, so we had a 13 story building, 3 stories of parking, retail on the front at the ground level. Obviously we had fitness gyms at second level, and then we had 10 levels of units above that. And obviously with wood, we're limited at 5 stories. So we spent a great deal of time looking at volumetric steel modulars, and we had a company called Z Modular that we were working with. They're still in business. They're based out of Chicago. They've got a couple factories, one in Austin, Texas, that is now building units. At the time that we were working on our project, unfortunately that plant wasn't open yet, which is part of the reason we didn't get to build it. But we fully designed it, had gone partially through the approval process, and so got to learn a lot about steel modulars. And at the time we were working on it, some of the tallest steel modular buildings had been around 44 stories, like the one that Forest City Ratner built in Brooklyn with Skanska. And that was a whole story there, how that fell apart. Actually, the Z Modular vector block system came out of that kind of learning lesson debacle of trying to build a 44 story steel building in Brooklyn. But so we got to design and see really the power of steel modular for high rises versus wood, where the advantage to steel is the tolerances being a lot tighter and the structure being a lot tighter allows you to do even more in the factory. For example, siding. We had planned to do the outside siding of the unit at the factory, and basically have our tower crane be able to, when they're stacking the units together, stack the unit with the siding already on it. So save the cost and time and energy of having a whole scaffolding of the building and wrapping it and weatherproofing it and doing all that. The advantage of steel volumetric modulars is you're able to do siding as well at the factory. The other thing that was really cool and interesting is essentially the whole floor plate, right? Because since you're dealing with steel, which can be really more easily fire rated, you're able to do your elevator shaft and stair shafts as a box as well, right? Where in the wood world, right, in the wood stick built and wood module world, the elevator shaft would be built out of usually CMU block, although there are modular elevator companies. Phoenix, shout out to Phoenix Modular Elevators. If you guys are looking for modular elevator companies, look into Phoenix. They have a great pre-built modular elevator system. But for most deals, it's a CMU block and anything that needs really substantial fire rating, you tend to, and structure, you build out of concrete. What's great about the steel system is that could be built in the factory as well. So the whole floor plate, from the units to the elevator shaft to the stair shafts for emergency exit, secondary exit, the whole floor plate was done in the factory. And the corridor was its own modular piece with all the MEPs already run in it, right? Wood modulars, when we do a double at a corridor with 2 units on each side, we leave the corridor unfinished because that's where we run our MEPs at the site. The advantage to steel is all that could be done in the factory as well. So huge benefits to steel volumetric modular, and it's been used. It's used around the world. There's a company out of Seattle, Stack Modular. That's you got factories in China that they're building them in China as well, and then Chinese have used it to build high-rise buildings, and so it's a technology that's there, that's been used, and definitely should be considered if you're doing a high-rise building. When you compare to cast in place, let's use again the 13-story building we worked on, right? When you lay a cast in place all the way up 13 stories, and then you got to finish it, you got to site it. Even more so today with the costs where they're at, it would really behoove you to look at steel volumetric modular as an option for your building. And there'll be more and more factories. I mean, the challenge right now, and at least we faced when we were working on a building, is we didn't have a factory. Z Modular was working on opening another factory close. The Austin plant had not been opened up yet, and so we didn't really have the capacity to build it. That's kind of what stopped us from eventually being able to build it. But today, I think it'd be a different story. I think that Austin plant could build it, and so we need more. Obviously, we need more manufacturers of modulars, especially steel. Topic being steel. I mean, in general, we need more factories, right? Even wood volumetric modular factories. We need more capacity, but even more so on steel. So that's definitely a challenge and a limitation to using steel right now, is the limited capacity of factories, especially where you are in the country. It might be difficult, but it will become more and more prevalent. We will see more steel modular factories being built. We have to. It's too good of a technology, and again, we saw it working on our deal and getting really into the weeds and designing, our 13-story project. We saw the efficiency there. There's too much efficiency there, and again, with the whole floor plate being done at factory, for it not to become a more prevalent way to build for high rises. Obviously, as of today, I think it might change down the road, but as of today, it doesn't make sense to build steel in most markets, right? I'm really trying to be careful how I'm wording this, because depending where you're in the country, in California, I've never built anything in California, and if you've built stuff in California, please comment down below. But I've heard stories in California where it's $1,000 to site build, like a simple 3-story walk-up, sprinkled apartment building, right? And so if you're dealing with that, then possibly steel could work on lower story buildings, 5 and below. But for most places around the country, as of today, multifamily 5 stories and below, you're still looking at wood. If it's modular, obviously it's volumetric wood modulars, and if it's over 5, then you're looking at steel. So obviously, we need to build more factories quicker, and I think I'm hearing more factories being built. I'm seeing it. Hopefully, steel factories will follow that as well, and having also more people who can build modular, who understand how to build modular. That's obviously the point of this channel and me doing these videos, is to bring folks up to speed who would have an interest in modular, right? Again, from anybody who wants to start out and be a builder and just avoid the headaches of site building and go straight to modular, to the seasoned general contractor, architect, developer who's been site building all these years and just can't do it anymore. They can't afford it anymore, right? The numbers don't work anymore, and they need a more viable solution. So we also need you guys to use more modular, right? Because right now we're still 4 or 5% of the industry. So the factories, I'm seeing factories being built. I think more can be built. I think more manufacturing firms are willing to build them, but they obviously need to see the demand, and the demand comes from us, who are going to use modular to build all this type of housing, all these types of buildings. So feel free to comment, as always. Please leave questions. That helps drive the conversation. I'm happy to answer more questions on that specific project in Denver, the 13-story project that we worked on, and go more down in the rabbit hole, depending on the questions that you have. And as we go to the audience, we'll obviously do live events, and feel free to ask questions then as well. And I appreciate you guys being part of the conversation. Have a great day. See ya.